Welcome to the Going Somewhere podcast, a podcast for anyone who finds themselves in the ambiguous adventure of young adulthood. A season marked by uncertainty, change, love, heartbreak, and a whole lot of big decisions. Sit down with me for some real and raw conversations with some incredible people as we dig into what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus in this beautiful yet complicated season of life. If this podcast helps you in any way, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with friends. Be sure to join the conversation on Instagram by following goingsomewhere.podcast. We're all going somewhere. We might as well go there together. Let's dive into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Going Somewhere podcast. I am Stephen Glasser and I get to host, and today I'm joined by my friend Alyssa Teubner. How are you doing, Alyssa?
I'm so excited. This is fun.
I am pumped. I have wanted to start this podcast for a while, and I've made like this big long list, and yours was like one of the first names of people that I wanted to have on my podcast. I just think you're so cool. And we go back a ways. You know, we were freshmen. I repped my NDSU sweatshirt, not like necessarily intentionally, but when I knew you were coming on. NDSU, freshman. So we go back a ways.
We do.
We do.
All the way to communications class and cramming for tests.
And me being a very adolescent 18-year-old who looked 14.
But we made it. We got through.
I'm surprised that, you know, I look back at some of my friendships when I was 18 and now that I'm 30, I'm like, thanks for sticking with me.
I feel like we're better friends now, though.
Oh, for sure. Like,
than when we were 18.
Way better.
So much better friends.
Well, and one of the cool things is that you're married to one of my friends, you know, Calvin, who's one of my heroes. And I'm going to have Calvin on here at some point, too. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's actually funny because Calvin actually told me that he would say no because the idea is so paralyzing for him.
You guys that are listening and watching, you will hold us to this. Calvin will be on it. And he's going to talk about finances.
He could do
a topic that he can rock. And so, but yeah, Calvin was in my small group when he was in college. Then he transferred and broke my heart. And then he came back. And that's when you guys met.
Yeah, you were with him on the night we first met. It was Skateland. And yes. I saw Stephen Glasser and was like, who is this blonde, blue?
And you were not talking about me.
I wasn't.
You were talking about the guy.
That's okay, though. My husband.
Yes.
And I didn't know it at the time, though. And I thought, I need to meet this man that Stephen brought to Skateland with him.
Well, I think you guys both hit the jackpot by marrying each other. And so it's so exciting. But what are you doing today? Like Alyssa Teubner, who is that?
Oh my gosh. Well, that is a really loaded philosophical question. I think a lot of people would start with their job, but I don't think that that's where I start. I would say that I am someone who follows joy. That's our family tagline.
That's awesome.
So I'm someone that follows joy. And I am a facilitator of community and connection in every area. That's like the goal.
That's awesome. I love that you decided to start that way. Because, I mean, I think the natural is to say, like, well, I do this and this is my job. But I love that your identity, obviously in Christ, and then in who you are and, like, the things that you do career-wise just kind of fit into the puzzle of who you are. What do you think it means to follow joy? Like, what does that mean to you guys and your family?
Yeah, that's so good. We've talked about that a lot. I think for us, joy is irrelevant of circumstance. Like, it can be the worst day and we can have joy, and it can be the best day and we can have joy because joy comes from the Father. Joy is being connected to the Holy Spirit and what He's doing in our lives and the character of God. Like, God is good, and that infiltrates our lives. And so we get to carry joy with us, like, everywhere we go.
That's awesome. I think, too, it's just, like, synonymous with when you follow God and the will of God for your life, like, you are following joy. Like,
absolutely.
Even when it, like you said, when it is circumstantially like, oh, this is a bummer, like, you can still find joy in those things.
Yeah, you'll see it in my email signature. Like, everything says follow joy.
Awesome.
We love that.
That's awesome.
Phrase.
So what do you do? Now I'll ask the question. I'll just ask it. What do you do for work? Like, what is your career?
Well, thank goodness we've been partners in this. You've come in, talked with students a lot. I get to hang out with students at North Dakota State University. Go Bison.
Yeah.
Oh, that wasn't even planned.
Yeah, I mean, it's just natural. When you're a Bison alumni, it just comes out naturally.
Anybody
says Bison, go Bison.
Like,
you don't even know where.
But I get to hang out with students. I'm the assistant director for new student programs, so work with orientation, welcome week, and family programs. So putting on things for first-year students, but a lot of it is working with upper-class students who facilitate those programs and events and experiences for our incoming students.
That's awesome. I know that's like, I have gotten to work with you, and I feel like when I was a freshman, my experience is different than the freshmen now. Like, I think what you and your colleagues are doing is so cool. And then the college ministry students that I was working with, to jump a part of it and to see the joy that they had in serving in that way was so fun to see. So it's fun. And I've gotten to come back and be very unqualified speaking to them about how to do things. So it's really fun.
You are not unqualified. If you can connect and if you can love people, that's like what they're doing for these first year students.
Well, that's awesome. And to be honest, that's part of, lumping it all together is why I was so excited to have you on the podcast. I think one of the things that you do so well is you create community, and obviously, you do it as a job, so you have to be very strategic and, all that stuff, but just in your life, like that's what you do. You create community. And one of the things is the small group that you started. And so for those that don't know about it, like obviously it's not through a church, it's just something you did. What was kind of the spark of that, and what does that look like today?
Yeah, Cal and I wanted to move back to Fargo. We just felt like that's where God was calling us, and when the doors opened, we just jumped in. And when we got here, we weren't sure where our church community was going to be. We were leaving a church that had a huge impact on us, and we were definitely grieving that as we left St. Cloud where we were. But I had all these women who I was friends with in college that knew and loved the Lord, that weren't sure where their church home was, and I loved doing life with them. So I just invited a big group of people, and there were probably like 25 women in my backyard, and we just sat and talked about like, what could this be? Like, do we want something we have to prepare for? Do we want to follow structure? What night of the week? Like, we basically had a group planning session with anyone I could think of that would maybe want to be involved. Wow. And that's where we started, was in our backyard.
That's so cool. Like, what was kind of leaving that meeting? Kind of what was the rally? Like, what did you guys feel like?
Leading up to the meeting, I will totally own, was anxiety of like, what if nobody shows up? What if like no one wants this? Because I think it's a fear to say like, here's a dream, here's a desire. What if no one else wants to do this beside me? And then these women showed up, and it was just kind of that reminder from the Lord, like, stop worrying. I've got this and I've got you. And knowing like there was going to be really cool possibilities to build something that didn't exist in the lives for most of us at that point.
Right. That's so cool. Cause I think it's easy, like when you're building a small group, or not, it's never easy, but when you're involved in a ministry and it's like the funnel, it's like, all right, here, go to this thing. But what you were doing was creating something that just didn't exist. Like, it was a void, and maybe even a void in your life. Like, I think back to some of the small groups I've been a part of, like, I aimed to create the small group that I needed, and then just assumed other people would be in the same boat.
No, 100%. That's what I was doing. I was really, really tired of trying to find a group, right? Because so much of it is this pressure of, can I show up authentically? That's the hardest part of small group, is like, can I be my authentic self with these people, and are they going to love me? And am I going to want to do life with them? And so I had the easy part done. These were women that I loved doing life with. We all just happened to know the Lord. And so to be able to go deeper in those conversations and connections was just this moment of like realizing how much more could be there if we were just intentional.
That's so, yeah. And I think, man, that's so cool. And I think being from afar, being able to see your group, I didn't really know about it. I obviously was gone for 2 years. So I was kind of, because when did you start?
That would have been I want to say we started the summer of 2019.
2019.
Yeah.
Because then COVID happened in March 2020, or like that's when it started. Because then you guys had to pivot, right?
Yeah. Yep. So we pivoted. We met some online, when things were super unknown. Once in a while, we'd be able to get together. But we definitely had just this like adaptability of, we had already felt grounded enough in one another that it kept going. We, a bunch of us did Easter, signed into Zoom and ate brunch together. Like, we just made it work.
What are some of the other things outside of the retreat? Because we'll talk more about that. But what are some of the other things that you've done to create community within the group? You just talked about brunch on Easter. Like, that's creative. Like, it's so easy. I think we were all involved with something on Zoom throughout COVID. And there was a point where it was just frustrating of like,
oh, absolutely.
I wish we could be in person, but you still engage them even during that time. Like, what are some of the other things that you've done in that season or out of that season?
Yeah, I think we have almost really made it fall into like a season. So every September we have sleepover night. And
that's amazing.
It is loud.
Like at one of your houses?
Yeah. Yep. So like 25 of us, and we'll invite friends who aren't a part of small group, and everybody brings a snack. I think we did dips, drinks, and desserts. So you had to bring something to drink or a dip or some kind of dessert. You had to bring 2 of 3. So the whole kitchen was just like every square inch was just full of food.
That's amazing.
And then we watch rom-coms and do nails, but all it ultimately ends up being is just this like knowing that it's going to happen every fall and knowing we're going to get this extended time together.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we feel like middle schoolers again, and it's hilarious.
But I think that's just like, I think it's those things, those memories and those moments that I feel like deepen relationship. Even if like the main talking point isn't like, we're going to go deeper tonight. Like,
absolutely.
We're setting out to go deeper in our relationship. It's just doing things together.
Yeah.
And creating like space for people to be together that I think is really cool. So that's awesome.
People will just post things in our Facebook group to be like, hey, this event is going on. Some of these girls have done trips together. So some of us did Florida and spent a couple of days just leaning into friendships. A group went and hiked Tahoe together. But I think what's cool is this is not the Alyssa show or the Alyssa project. Like, this is like a team. And so women who find things that they're passionate about invite others to go. So sometimes it's serving together. Sometimes it's, just hanging out. But it doesn't feel like small group activities. It's just, I'm doing this in my life. Who wants to come and join?
That's awesome. And I was in a group where the leader, the first week he was just like, just so we all know, I can't be everything to everyone. And he just like set the groundwork, and he put all of our names in a hat. So this was kind of his creative way. And then it was a couples group. So we drew out another couple, and that was our double date group. So we had to go on a double date with them. And the couple that we got to know became like some of our closest friends while we were out in New Jersey. And so it was just so fun to have like kind of a creative way to get it off of the leader a little bit, and just to actually build relationship and community throughout. Because that's what you're doing. Like, That's what the girls are getting. It's not just like, I have my friend Alyssa that I can fall back on. It's
Absolutely.
Like, I have a whole group of women that
And what we've really tried to do too is like strategically, at the end of a lot of our meetings, there's something that connects to what we did. So you are assigned to a group of 3 or one buddy, and you have to text each other throughout the week, like how you're doing with what you committed to for the week, or you have to have coffee with one of the women before we get back together. So we just pick little assignments that are accountability assignments throughout the week. And that has helped mix and match some of those friendships, or even like do some friendship strategic pairing of people who in my head, I'm like, oh, I want them to be friends.
I feel like your job so well merges with that when it comes to that. Like,
there's no difference.
The activities and the things, I'm like, I would never think of doing some of those things. I think what I need you to do with this podcast is just also create us like a bullet point list of things to do to help create community. Because I'm just like, all right, how do I do it? I get coffee. I don't know.
Well, one of the coolest things, I get to work with a really incredible consultant whose goal is to eliminate small talk from the world. He believes it's pointless. Like, we need to have meaningful conversations that matter. And I work with him, Chad, shout out, thanks.
Shout out, Chad.
I work with him at work, but what he does is create question cards. And we've started this thing as small group. When we travel together or when we have a meal, we pick a question of the day. And these are like deep questions.
Like what are some examples?
Yeah, like one example we did was like, what would your childhood self need to know that would be healing to you as an adult? Like, we're talking big questions. Yeah. And we end up spending hours just talking. And that's a technique that I've taken from work that now just becomes like, hey, what's the question? Like, we don't even think about it. And one night we were all at a rooftop and sitting around a fire pit, and there were some strangers there. And we just said, hey, can we sit with you? We're going to do questions. You can join if you want to. And they kind of looked at us like, no way. No way. These girls are crazy. And they actually joined in. So about half of us were small group ladies and half were just new friends that we had met. And several of them were weeping as they shared. And so I think for us, we saw like this natural part of our community to share like really vulnerably and authentically isn't something that a lot of people get hardly ever. And so being able to see that and us facilitate it for people we don't know was just this really cool moment for me to be like, this works.
That's amazing. What do you feel like? So obviously when you'd run into this at NDSU all the time, I'm sure, but when you have people that maybe aren't like familiar with that, like how do you make it so it's organic? Because I think that's the thing that I've seen in you and your group, but also in the move in like NDSU, like it's gone to more organic connections with students. Cause I think you can do icebreaker games and you can do all these activities and things, but how do you do it in a way that's organic, that makes people like really just loosen up, connect, and grow through that?
Yeah. So much of it is the question. Like icebreakers are surface level. It's like, what's your favorite color? You're not going to connect over that. That is not a connection making question. But when I say, Steven, what's on your refrigerator right now? All of a sudden, you're going to tell me about weddings you're invited to. You're going to show me you're going to talk about the things that Kinsley has drawn that you have on the fridge. You're going
right now it's a potato. She drew a potato and the hands and the legs all come out of the face. It's pretty amazing. So that's what's in my fridge.
So we have to ask questions that matter. And I think we have to be upfront about the why. So often we try to sneak it in there, and just saying connections are something that we all desperately are looking for, and we all need friends. And so it's so important that we invest in this, and we're going to do some questions, and we invite you to be part of this because you need it and the people around you need it, rather than being like, we're going to tell them to answer these questions and not tell them why and just hope that they play along. Like, people are smarter than we give them credit for if we just give them the context.
For sure. What do you think like some of the benefits, not benefits of your group, but like what are some of the things in having this organic, like Christ-centered, deep relationship-based group that you are a part of? Like what are some of the benefits that you've seen in maybe the women in the group or even in yourself?
Yeah, I think there's a validation to be able to be authentic that I don't know a lot of people ever feel. Where there was a text that one of them sent the other night. It was a screenshot from a new book that I just ordered on Amazon, and it's talking about, I'll be there, but I'll show up in sweatpants. And it basically says, like, you're not always going to be the good friend. You're going to have seasons in life where you're not there very much or where you're struggling. But when you have people that are like, we just want you to be with us, even if it's in sweatpants, even if you just show up. I think that's what we've really found is a place where we can do that. So I've seen, as we've seen each other through grieving death, as we've seen each other through divorce, as we've seen each other through infertility, those are all things that I think a lot of times we feel like we have to show up to a small group or a space and not talk about, where I feel like this group has been like, I'm going to go show up to this space because I desperately need a space to lean into all of what I'm experiencing.
Authenticity is so huge,
yeah.
And just allowing people to belong. And I think that's the other thing that I've gained from your group. And even, at NDSU, I got to speak on that topic, creating a sense of belonging. But you just mentioned like infertility and, divorce and other, death in the family, whatever the case is. I think sometimes, it's almost like you have to fish like for some of that stuff.
Yeah.
What's it been like having an environment where that's kind of like the baseline? Like these are the things that we walk with each other through.
Yeah, it's absolutely like a biblical reflection of what I see. Like that's how Jesus did life. He loved meals with his friends. He loved conversation. And I feel like I look at my life, and most people, I think they say like, oh, when I leave college, it's kind of when you lose connection. You maybe don't have as many friends. And I can honestly say that at 31, I have the best friendships that I've ever had in my whole life, because they're such a reflection of the gospel. And that means that sometimes we show up and we don't do it right, definitely myself included. And yet we work really, really hard to do well by each other, which is just like beautiful.
Well, and you've cultivated that, because I think that's a lot of young adults. I think a lot of young adults leave college, and I've had conversations in the last month where it's like, I had friends, I was constantly around people, and then all of a sudden now I work 9 to 5. My friends are maybe in a different season, and I just feel lonely. And I think, and I mean, there's total validity to that. I think that is the natural, like how it feels. You leave this season of life if you go to college where you're around people all the time, and then it's like, where is everybody? What am I supposed to do? But you've cultivated that. You've created that space. And obviously for other women, which is like an incredible thing. Like there's others out here that need this, but also you've created for yourself. And I think there's a point of, maybe there's somebody out there listening today. Like, what would your advice be to them if they're looking to create something like this, or just if they have that void, if they feel that, like, I feel, you just said 31 and feel like you have the best, deepest friendships. I think there's probably others out there that are in our same season of life that are going, I'm the exact opposite. Where do I start?
I actually wrote, so I study belonging as like, that's what my doctoral dissertation is on, is like sense of belonging. So I feel like every time I even see the word, I'm like so drawn to it. And I wrote in my notes yesterday, Jenny Allen just released a new book on finding your people in a world of loneliness. And I wrote in my notes on my phone, is belonging the opposite of loneliness? And I kind of think loneliness is the opposite of belonging. Like I think when we experience loneliness, that's the farthest we can feel from a sense of belonging. And to me, in my scholarly work, we know that mattering is like a central component of belonging. You can't belong unless you feel like you matter. And when I remember when we moved here, Calvin has a really close group of guy friends, and they're all married. And I felt like the one on the outskirts of the wives. I was like, I'm not really their friend. They just feel like they have to invite me. I remember that anxious feeling of like, I don't know. And I remember in a quiet time one day, God was just like, what if you just really intentionally loved these women instead of worrying about yourself so much? And I did not like that.
Come on, God.
I didn't really like the call out, but I thought that. I was like, okay, I'm going to try really hard. So it was like writing them cards, dropping off meals, checking in. And all of a sudden I was getting that back. And that wasn't the reason to do it. But I started to realize like sometimes we isolate so much in our loneliness that we don't work to make other people feel like they matter. But if we really pour into like people's accomplishments and strengths and blessing them, whether it's just like a Venmo for coffee or it's showing up after a life circumstance, that's how we validate that they matter. And then we start to belong to them and they belong to us in friendship.
Yeah. I'm getting fired up.
But not everyone is going to work all the time to make you feel like you matter. Like so much of our call as Christians is to be that person instead of constantly asking like, God, why doesn't anyone do this for me?
For sure. And I think of Jesus and just the way that he lived his life oftentimes was unvalidated. Like it was unreciprocated in a lot of part, but yet he just continued to love and serve. Obviously it was why he was on earth. And I think ditto, like that's why we're on earth too, as his followers. And so that's incredibly like powerful yet practical. It's one, just thinking through the old saying, like, do unto others what they would do unto you. But like, what are the things that I need? And now I'm going to give that to other people. And if they reciprocate, great. If they don't, great.
That's fine.
You feel love. Or I know this is my life. Like I feel loved when I love, like I feel covered and just taken care of. Like when I do that and go to my way, like I think I get just as much as they're ever going to get too.
And sometimes our loneliness is just being disconnected from the Holy Spirit. And when we're doing and blessing others, it's really hard to feel disconnected from God because it's such a part of what he calls for us. And so, I think sometimes it's just going out of your way to how do I make people in my life feel like they matter, but also with people that are on the edges of your life, because I think that's where people move from the margins to that inner circle. There are so many people that, whether they have something happen in life or that we can do something that is mattering instead of worrying of like, oh, do they really want me to bring a meal? Should I really say anything? Should I really reach out? That's when all of a sudden we're cultivating like deep, meaningful friendships that used to just be people on the margins of our lives.
For sure. I feel like for Taylor and I right now, there's almost like a capacity level too. So when we were here prior, before we moved, being involved in college ministry, there was every year there was hundreds of new students. And it was like, honestly, I think we were on trajectory to burnout, or I was on trajectory to burnout. And it wasn't because like college ministry burns you out. It was just the way that I was doing it unchecked was going to. And then when we moved away, it was like almost a vacuum. Like there wasn't hardly any connections and relationships, which was really exciting for us. We felt like this is our time we can build relationships with neighbors, with people at the park, which was really fun to do that. Then we came back and it's almost like, okay, we have this wide net. And so we've really focused in this season of like, not neglecting, like Jesus never neglected the crowd, yet he always had his 12 and his, 3. And so for us, it's kind of been like, let's just really stoke those relationships. Taylor and I went to DQ opening night.
Oh, I saw that.
More with the Hams. And then the next day, Taylor went to Target with Ashley, Silas, and our kids. And I just think like we need that too, but we're having these conversations like, okay, what does it look like if we just leave one night of the week open to invite somebody over for a meal, or Sunday after church, or just creating the space in our life. And it sometimes means chopping some of the things that maybe aren't as important that we just give our time to out of like default,
Absolutely. And I try to be really intentional with some of my close friends to be like, you might be in the small group that I'm leading, but I am not discipling you. Like we are just iron sharpening iron. And there is a big difference, at least in my world, of like, who am I discipling and who am I just growing with equally?
Yeah.
Because there's a difference. I can tell the difference in how I feel when I get done spending an hour with someone who I'm pouring into and trying to really one-on-one disciple versus like a majority of these women who we just all know Jesus and need to talk about that and need to support each other and pray for each other and encourage one another. Like it's so different.
And I think when you have authenticity, it opens the door just to say where I am.
Oh, yeah.
It allows me to say, I need somebody to intentionally disciple me. If that's where I feel like there's a void, or I just need, like, I've had conversations with people, like, I just need somebody that I can just be completely open and honest with and not receive like the sermon in return. I just need somebody that's just going to listen and love me and hug me and just validate like my feeling of where I am.
And our capacity for connection making changes with our seasons. And that's not bad.
Right.
I think it's just recognizing how you can do it and what that looks like. And it might go from in person all the time to we have a big group text that is just like, hey, I need prayer for this right away. And although we may not all get together for 2 weeks, that communication is open. Right. It can't always just be the in-person connection all the time because we're adults with responsibilities.
For sure. And when Dave Liedall was on the podcast, he talked about making adjustments. Like he talked about engaging and disengaging. And instead of just disengaging when maybe the season gets busier or it changes, like just make an adjustment. Just understand like, how do I live a life of on mission and love the people around me just with the new circumstances and the new settings instead of just abandoning ship altogether. Exactly.
I met with one of my really, really good friends and we ran around the house while we got chased by electric cars. And then, every 10 minutes, the kids would wake up and come and see if we were still there on the couch talking. And they caught us with ice cream, which we were like, oh, no.
Oh, no. Give them ice cream.
But, no, it's not this uninterrupted time where we're out to dinner for hours. But it's a sweet season of life with little kids, which is beautiful. And it's so fun to get to walk with her in that way.
Well, you guys were just recently over too. I don't know when you came over, like 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And we're just like, we'll just stay up late.
Exactly.
This is going to be great.
On a school night, because I still have school nights.
Yes, you do have school
every
nights.
Every day is school.
And you're doing your doctorate, which is just crazy. So,
We all have our things though. You are
Yeah.
parenting 2 children. So
It's true. It is true. No, and I think that is also like a testament of like, it's not the fact that you've just like entered into a season of life where you have no lower responsibilities and just less going on in your life, like arguably more. You're in your doctorate, your job is not just something where you just kind of go in, check a few boxes and leave for the day. Like it's on your mind a lot, and you're married and your husband refs, and like there's so much going on in your life, yet the predominant thing that's going on in your life is love. And it's creating belonging and creating, that place for deep relationships to grow, which is really cool. And I think really inspiring to anybody, because I think sometimes it's like, well, when things slow down, I'll pick it up again,
And they won't slow down. Like they won't.
And
they might
pick
slow
it up
down,
again.
but there will never not be things.
Yeah.
There will be slower seasons, but I think for me too, having those connections and saying, this is where I'm at, this is how I can contribute right now. But as you were talking about your smaller circle, I was just thinking about this. You're connecting with your children. Like that is a primary connection for you. And I think sometimes we think just about our friends, right?
Yeah.
How am I creating connection in my church or with my friends? But your kids are your biggest connection, arguably, behind Taylor and behind the Lord. And so that's where I maybe have more capacity with friendships right now. But as I move into a different season, my connections might have to look different. But your kids know they belong in your family.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's really good. One of the things that I got to be a part of, so I knew about your group a little bit, and then you invited me to speak at your retreat. So
your first all women's retreat that you spoke at.
It was my first women's retreat. I've even attended. I haven't even attended a women's retreat.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so you guys just rented an Airbnb and we entered in, but can you just talk about that? Like what's gone into that? Is that something you guys do often? And yeah, just tell me about the retreat.
The goal is to do it once a year. We did have to miss, we had to bump from October to January at one point just with COVID and some things like that.
Okay.
But yeah, the goal is to do that once a year, to really do a hard reset. And one of the women said, and I thought it was really, really good, she said, I almost always feel like it's the New Year's Eve of our small group. Like we're setting our intentions for the next year. We typically try to pick our word for the year shortly after that and share that with each other. And it really has become like the New Year's of our small group. And I really had a good processing session this year as I was thinking about retreat of, I was reading the other half of church.
Okay. Yep.
And thinking we can't do content the whole time. We need to just do life together and spend some time just laughing and eating and sharing in a way that just facilitates community. So I would say it's about half and half of really digging into what are the principles of scripture and how are we going to incorporate that and grow. And then how do we just love each other and get this reset and really lean into that opportunity?
Yeah. And it was so cool. You guys had coffee mugs. Everybody.
Yeah. Ugly Mugglies.
Ugly Mugglies. You guys all bought coffee mugs, and on the bottom of it, you had.
So we thrift all those mugs.
Yeah.
They're hideous. We love them. And at the bottom, there's stickers with colors. And so that determines your cleanup crew team. And we do crafts. I don't hike, but other people do outdoor
There's
things.
A workout area in the Airbnb.
Yeah,
you guys
one of the
rent.
girls is yoga certified and did a morning yoga class with worship music. We line dance every year. We always learn a line dance. One of the group members always feels it on her heart to do gift bags. So everybody gets books and journals and stickers and Bible highlighters. And then we take turns. We pick a theme. So this year it was the ruthless elimination of hurry. And girls were just assigned specific topics and a partner, and they facilitate about a 90-minute lesson. So it really is just a shared responsibility to give ourselves what we should, to give ourselves rest and a break and removal. And we all turned in our phones this year. There were no cell phones. The moms could call their kiddos at the end of the day and then they would give them back. But we all just said it was awesome to not have our phones for the weekend.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And shout out to all the dads too, holding down the fort.
People held down the fort.
But no, it's so cool. Like Taylor and I walked in like knowing about the retreat and about your group, and that was like the immediate environment that we felt like was just relationship. Like it was just it was like an explosion of just love of like, that's literally what it felt like. We felt really, taken in immediately, because I knew a few of the women involved, but I didn't know everybody by any means. And but just it was a place that you could just come as you are. And I think even in, that's kind of my teaching style. Like I want to be authentic, but it made that so easy because it was just, that was the environment. Like that was the tone. Like we are here as we are, and let's grow together. Let's lean into a relationship together. So I had such a blast at that. I left that, like I leave speaking things going, oh, that was really fun. And I'm really grateful, but I took so much away from that. Not just what we felt, but also just being in that environment inspired me of like, my friends need this. There's pastors in our state. There's pastors in my life that are serving on college campuses that need this. There's just, the list goes on. And I just thought that environment, like if we all took time once a year to get away with some of the people we're closest to, lose the agenda to an extent. I think it's important to have things to like go forward with.
But it doesn't have to all be content all the time.
And just be together and intentionally be together. Like that's, I think, something that you almost need to throw into the term be together with devices and everything. Like to lose the devices, to not have TVs. It was just food, people. So much food. So much food. And we got to benefit from that and a lot of coffee. But no, so it was so cool. I loved that, being at it, but also just knowing that that's something that's happening. And that's part of, I want to challenge people to grab their closest friends. And I would love to write out something that we can just give to people and say, here's how to do it. Here's how to start it. So keep your eyes on that. It'll someday be something you can find. But no, that's so cool. I think another thing in your life that I've been really inspired by is like this whole idea of belonging. It's translated into the way that you and Calvin want to build your family. You guys are seeking adoption. And can you tell me a little bit about that and just like what brought you to that decision?
Yeah, that was a whirlwind, and it has probably been almost 3.5 years now where this has been in the works, and God was planting seeds long before that. We had the opportunity to connect with a family who was going through the same agency as us, and we didn't know that, and they were living in Minnesota. And if a baby is born in North Dakota and is placed with someone in Minnesota, they can't cross state lines until all the paperwork is signed.
Okay.
And so I had just reached out and said, hey, I've known you since childhood. Like, if you're placed, feel free to stay at our house for a few days so you don't have to pay for a hotel because adoption is expensive. And she just said, yeah, that sounds great. And I actually ran into her. I hadn't seen her in 10 years. I ran into her in my hometown and went up to her and just tapped her on the shoulder and said, no, I seriously mean it. Like, if you need a place. And 2 weeks later, she called and said, you're not going to believe this, but there's a family that's been parenting and they're not sure that they're capable. And they've asked us to come up like today. And so as that family made the most difficult decision that you could ever make as parents, we did life with them. They lived in our house, the 4 of us and Daniel, and we just prayed and cried and ate dinner and went on walks and just really seriously did life together. And he was placed with them about a month later. So they stayed for about a month. And it was just a really powerful experience. His name was Daniel. We talked about how prophetic that was with the book of Daniel being like, and even if he does not, God is still good. And so that was like the thing through the whole thing, right? Even when adoption doesn't go the way that we think, God is still good and is still in so much control. And we let that sit for about a year. We were just their friends through the process. We were really moved just by the whole experience. And then about a year later, we said, was this a learning experience, or was this supposed to set us up for something that we're supposed to venture into as well? And then through a lot of conversations and prayer, we decided that that's how we intentionally wanted to try and start our family and become parents through adoption. So we are through all the paperwork, and our agency works with 15 families at a time. We're number 16. And so if at some point we move on to that list of 15 families that are considering placing, have access to our profile and can look at how we want to do life and see if that's a good fit as they make that decision.
That's incredible. I love adoption. My nephew is adopted and love him to death. And I think that process is so difficult for so many reasons, just emotionally, but also just like the process itself. I mean, rightfully, but there's a lot of legality to it and hoops, and I think it can be frustrating, but it's so worth it. And these children are put into a family where they do belong and they experience love. And I know the child that ends up in your home, whatever that timing may be, is going to be very blessed, very blessed, which is exciting.
And we think a lot about those families that are having to place too, and hoping that they can feel a sense of belonging and love, and really the utmost respect from us, because it's not about us. And I think a lot of times we shine the spotlight on those adoptive parents, but really it's about the parents that place and those kids. And one of our favorite kids books on adoption is You Belong Here. And it's a story about a family that adopted and written by them. And it's from the perspective of their little sheep that they bring home. And the sheep is looking for its family, and there aren't other sheep at the farm. And the sheep then finds its home with the other animals on the farm over time. And so I think adoption isn't a magical thing. Belonging is not easy. We have to help that child and their parents feel like they matter. Yeah. And being a part of that.
That's incredible. I think that's one of the things too that I hope our church, but the church can take steps towards too. I think obviously we think of adoption and we oftentimes think of the alternative option for those parents that end up giving. One of the alternative is abortion. And I think the church has made our voice very clear on that topic, yet the families that are going through that process, like God loves them deeply. And I hope as the church, we can rise up and be there for that too. Like on both sides of that whole coin, like as a church adopting and fostering and bringing in these kids that need homes and love, but loving those that have made that decision, because there's something in their life that has pushed them to that point, and who knows what that is. And I'm not to judge of what that decision was, but we can love that person because they're lovable and like they're created in God's image, and we can rally around them too. Like I would love that to be part of the whole conversation and the whole solution as well.
Even more that they don't have to get there. Like how can we support when people want a parent? Because we love to rally behind fundraising for adoptive families, and that's good. Yeah. It is expensive, but we have to rally behind people that need resources to parent. Because that is equally as important. And so, as the church has opportunities to even the clothing drive, right, that we did, as we can give coats to the elementary schools, like we have to value everybody's opportunity to parent and make that accessible. And as a church, we have a really cool opportunity to do that and meet the needs of families that are struggling to parent.
For sure. And I think too, we'll never know what forces people to that decision or leads them to that decision unless we actually dive in.
Yep.
And I think sometimes the posture can be so negative and judgmental towards that we'll never know. Like we'll never be close enough to be invited in to, this is why. Like this is the things that led to that. And I think like that's the part of this conversation that I want to see happen more and be part of too. And so that's awesome.
We're excited.
We went there. That was fun. Like,
it was fun. I told you nothing was off limits. Go for it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I just think there's so many things that as young adults or whoever listens to this, I know I've had people text me that are not young adults. I'm like, just keep listening. There's going to be something great for you. Yeah.
Take a look.
Yes. All the moms of guests have listed, but I think there's something that all of us can do in these conversations. And my hope is that we can start by having conversations like Alyssa and I are just having a conversation that we would maybe have.
Like this is normal.
Yeah.
Yes.
But to let people in on those conversations, to think, how can I play a role in these things? And maybe it's adopting, and I'm going to just put some information in the show notes of just like how to pursue that, or just questions, ask and do those things. But just in general, like that's my hope and that's my heart, is that we would all leave these conversations going, okay, now what's one thing or one step that I can take to meet the needs? And whether that's creating community and creating a sense of belonging, or just in the idea of adoption and all of those things that go along with it. So, but
absolutely. I mean, as young people that know Jesus, I think we have to be open to not living the lives that we plan, but the lives that he sets out for us. Like, as two people, we didn't think that we would start our family through adoption because of a radical experience. I didn't think I'd be hosting, small group retreats, but when God plants those seeds, we can lean in and he'll sustain you and give you what you need. It's just about like actually doing it and actually being like, I'm going to respond and walk into this instead of walk away from it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Final question for you today.
Yeah.
What advice would you give 18 to 20-year-old Alyssa?
Ooh, 18 to 20-year-old Alyssa was a lot. Literally, God bless the people that took time to mentor and help that situation. But I think 18 to 20-year-old Alyssa would need to know, Enneagram fans, I'm an 8. I tend to be some walls. I tend to be more someone that people are like, I don't know what she's thinking. But that you can't really be loved until you allow yourself to be known. And that it's okay to be known, and you don't become known when you're perfect. Like, you become known when you show up. And so just to remove those walls to allow people to really know me. But I think 18 to 20-year-old Alyssa didn't trust who she was enough or love herself enough to do that.
That's so good. That's so good. No, thanks for sharing it. Thanks for being here, being a guest on the Going Somewhere podcast.
I love it.
This podcast is going somewhere. We don't know.
We don't know where.
But I love this, and thanks for everybody that's been listening and watching. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen and watch, just to keep up with everything. But again, Alyssa, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate you a lot.
It was awesome.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Going Somewhere podcast. I had a lot of fun sitting down with Alyssa and having this conversation. There was many times and many things that I was really inspired by, really encouraged by, really challenged by. One of the things that really jumped out at me was the way that Alyssa has just taken initiative in the area of community in her life. That I think it's so easy for us as young adults. We leave maybe a season of college or high school where we're surrounded by people. We're surrounded by community. It's maybe even created for us. But there comes a point where I think we experience loneliness, or we experience just a disconnect, and it's easy to look around and go, all right, who's going to start it? Where can I find it? But I think the real answer is, and the real takeaway is this, is we need to create the community that we need. Trusting that there's other people around us that maybe have the same needs or the same desires or the same longings. And when we create the thing that we need in our life, we're likely to meet a need in the lives of those around us. So what does that look like for you? What does creating the community that you need mean to you? What are the action steps that you can take? Maybe you have a group of people in your life, but you just need to maybe be more intentional. Maybe you do a retreat or a sleepover or whatever the case is. Find that thing that you can do this week. That's the challenge, is find one thing that you can do to spark and to create belonging and community for you and for the people around you. I know there were so many of the things that Alyssa talked about, whether it was her and Calvin's just adoption story, that we can really take away and chew on this week as well. So I would love to hear it. Head over to Instagram, goingsomewhere.podcast. Maybe share one takeaway from this week's episode. Let us know, and also be sure to subscribe, leave a review and a rating for the podcast wherever you listen to it. We appreciate that. And as always, this podcast is a resource of Northview Church in Fargo, North Dakota. If you're ever in the area on a Sunday, check us out at 9:30 a.m. or 11 a.m. and find us online at northview.life. But have a great week, and we'll see you again next week.